When it comes to the Star Wars saga, not only has it had its up and downs with fans and critics, of course, this is something that always translates to box office. Now, I know the perception is that Star Wars has always been the biggest thing in box office, but that's not quite true, and we're going to go over the entire history. So while yes, it's true that Star Wars as a whole started the whole perception of the giant blockbuster, and now the Skywalker saga is ending with the rise of Skywalker, it's been a long few decades with this franchise, but throughout it, it's had its ups and downs. Originally, Empire Strikes Back was not the most well-received movie. Return of the Jedi, many say that's when George Lucas started to become George Lucas, which led to the prequels, which at the time were alright received, then they got a lot of hate, and now apparently they're the things everybody wishes they had more of. When it comes to the current trilogy, it's a completely different story when it comes to how Disney approached it. So when we go back and look at the box office history, it paints an interesting picture of this franchise. So first up, we will go straight to the first film, May 25th of 1977, the original Star Wars, which was later going to be known as Star Wars A New Hope. As you guys can tell, that film did $775 million. So that's good. Now, next up, 3 years later, The Empire Strikes Back came out. This is regarded as one of the best films of all time, and more than likely, probably your favorite if you're watching this. It certainly is my favorite Star Wars film, and my number 2 favorite film of all time. That film, even though many of us consider it the best, saw a significant downfall in box office to $547 million. And then just 3 years later, because a lot of people did not like The Empire Strikes Back, The Return of the Jedi came out and did $475. And then, of course, there was a Star Wars hiatus. There wasn't a whole lot. Star Wars actually found itself in trouble because the movies were over. It wasn't until Shadows of the Empire in the mid-90s that they did this whole giant push of bring Star Wars back, which of course was going to lead into the prequels. When you get to the prequels, 1999, we see that The Phantom Menace, even though many will regard it as the worst one, did over $1 billion. Just 3 years after that, Attack of the Clones, which is my least favorite Star Wars movie, I will say that, and I know many people that agree with me, that one did $656. And only 3 years after that, we of course have the third final prequel film, which did $848. I mean, it's better than episode 2 because typically the middle chapter of a lot of trilogies is the one that does end up performing the worst because of that anticipation. So things were looking decent. We're not going to talk about the Clone Wars here because that's kind of not relevant. After that, of course, years went by and we finally got The Force Awakens. Again, this is the big kickoff to the modern day Star Wars. $2 billion. That within itself is absolutely astronomical. That is some huge numbers right there. You can't deny the success of that film. Again, after that, we had Rogue One, which was a stopgap, but then we have The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi did significantly less than The Force Awakens, but again, it follows that middle chapter, and of course, it's interesting to see how the backlash to that film might have affected something. Now, when we get to The Rise of Skywalker, this is where it could be up in the air. Is it going to repeat what The Return of the Jedi did, and not even match up to the actual total of the last film and be the lowest earning, or is it going to follow the prequels and end up making more than the second film, but of course not as much as the first film, because let's be real, there's no way The Rise of Skywalker is making Force Awakens numbers. And this is the name of the box office game, It's interesting to look at it and the interesting patterns that present themselves in Star Wars, and overall, you can tell it's been ups and downs since pretty much the beginning. I recall when I was, watching the prequels as a little kid, how much I loved Jar Jar Binks. And certainly, the franchise has had its ups and downs, and if you look at the charts, 2022, 24, and 26, we got 3 more films coming. So who knows what the box office is going to say about Star Wars, but I think it's going to be a while before we see another Star Wars get up to Force Awakens level of $2 billion. And I dare say it might not happen again.